There are a lot of questions surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers' star wide receiver. There are a lot of concerns revolving around the Steelers' star wide receiver. You heard the Christmas Day game where he was late, showed up less than 2 hours before kickoff. You've heard multiple times from multiple reports. I mean, Mike DeFabo dropped another one on us yesterday saying that George Pickens was constantly late for practice and players were acknowledging that he was constantly late for practice. You heard earlier in the year from Ray Fittipaldo that George Pickens was late to work all the time. I've heard a lot of these things throughout the year, and this is just adding on to $90,000 in fines from the NFL this season, $200,000 in fines last season from the NFL and the Pittsburgh Steelers for conduct detrimental to the team. Mike Tomlin coming out and pretty much saying, yeah, 3 years in, I get it. He's a veteran. He's got a lot to work on. He's got a lot to work on maturity-wise. And you're 3 years in, dude. You're a veteran in the NFL. You should know how to do these things. You should be mature. You should be a vet in the NFL, and he's not. What I have been told is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are, quote-unquote, moving on or have the mindset of moving on from George Pickens, that they are looking to make that a thing already, that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going to give him away for nothing, but they are very open-minded to moving on from George Pickens this offseason, and that in their eyes, they envision their wide receiver room to look completely different in 2025, that they envision a entirely new looking room. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's gone, but it means that there's probably a new superstar, that there's probably a new number two, that I have a hard time believing Calvin Austin is a guy that you're just getting rid of because you just need to clean house. And Roman Wilson would be the same thing. But the Pittsburgh Steelers want a new look wide receiver room this coming season, and George Pickens is obviously the highlight there. The Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to move on from him. This is what I've been told per source, that the team is done, is ready to go in a new direction. You hear this. I texted you last night, obviously. But you hear this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because we've talked about it constantly for 3 years, and this is the offseason that he's going to have to get paid. And typically issues like this don't get quieter as a player gets paid. Typically, once a player gets paid, it gets a lot louder. Like, for example, and I get it, very extreme example, but for example, Antonio Brown. Everybody knew there were some issues there, and even Ryan Clark infamously said, once you pay that man, it's going to go downhill. They paid him, and it slowly started to go downhill. Now, the Steelers have a track record of knowing when to let go. They did it with Antonio Brown. They did it with Martavis Bryant, who wasn't able to replicate his success in Pittsburgh anywhere else. They did it with Deontay Johnson. I think that is a very clear statement right now.
Yes.
Is this going to be another indication? Is this going to be another instance where, listen, they had all intention of giving this guy the farm and giving this guy all the money in the world, but he just could not get it on track when it came to his acting and his behavior off the field, his behavior on the practice field, his behavior when it came to coming to work on time. If they're having these issues, it makes sense that they're going to look to move him. Now, here's the thing. There's a chance they don't, because there's a chance that they value him at a very, very high level where they want a first-round pick or they want a second-round pick, and other teams just aren't willing to give it to him. 3 years ago, which is not that long ago, he fell to the Steelers for a very good reason. Everybody saw him as a first-round talent, but they didn't want to deal with the extracurriculars. That hasn't changed. So how many teams are going to be willing to give up that price for George Pickens now that he has proven that those red flags are true in the National Football League level? So I think there's a chance that they're shopping him. I think that makes all the sense in the world, but I don't think that necessarily means that he's done in Pittsburgh. I think that just means that if somebody comes out and says, hey, we'll pay you this price, then they will be willing to let go of him. But that doesn't mean that necessarily anybody's going to be willing to pay the price the Steelers are looking for George Pickens this summer.
I agree. Nothing that's guaranteed in the NFL, and you have no idea. You typically, wide receivers go for more than they're worth. I don't know why. We watched it for years. Before the George Pickens draft, the Kenny Pickett draft, it was nuts. It was just like, you want a wide receiver? Here's a first-round pick. You want a wide receiver? Here's a first-round pick. Like, it was all over the board. Look at these results. People are making free money betting on sports, making thousands every month. The secret? They're using OddsJam. OddsJam isn't just another betting app, it's turning the entire system in your favor. OddsJam uses a strategy called arbitrage, finding odds differences across sportsbooks. Bet both sides, and no matter the outcome, you will profit. Here's an example. You put $500 on Boise State to win on FanDuel and $335 on their opponent San Francisco on DraftKings. You're guaranteed to make $50 win or lose. With the OddsJam mobile app, you get real-time alerts on these opportunities every day. People are making thousands monthly. To get you started, use our code ALLSteelersTalk for 35% off and a 7-day free trial. I guarantee you'll profit during that trial, and if you don't, cancel with one click, no questions asked. Don't leave money on the table. Go to oddsjam.com, use our code ALLSteelersTalk, and start making money the smart way. I think when it comes to George Pickens, couple of things work in the Steelers' favor to a degree, but I agree with you. I think that there are so many red flags, and teams obviously do their due diligence, that you are going to hit a crossroads where maybe it just doesn't work out. The first one is 31 other teams don't fully understand the red flags that this guy carries. And 31 other teams also believe that they are capable of doing what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing and keeping him quiet and not having to worry about, oh, this is going to be an issue. He's going to blow up in our house. No, they all look at it as, we're good. We'll contain him. We have the management. We have the head coaches. We have the veteran players around us to make sure that that doesn't happen. 31 teams, all 32 teams think that at all times. Are they correct? Most of the time, not. On the other side of that, when he came out of the draft, it was the issues. It was the off the field and on the field issues. It was what's going on with George Pickens. He's a hothead. It's going to lead to problems. Since then, George Pickens has certainly proved that he is a star wide receiver in the NFL, which does help his case. And I think that all it takes is one. All it takes is that one team to have that combination of, we could fix him and we need a star wide receiver, and this kid's 23 years old and doesn't get paid a lot of money yet. Maybe we take a shot on him. And again, you are 100% correct. They could find themselves in a place where nobody's offering that whatsoever. But April is 4 months away, and that is a long time for people to sit here and not say anything. You know what I mean? Nothing at all. In April or in March, and it's the same argument. Do you expect Russell Wilson to sign somewhere in free agency as a starting quarterback if it's not in Pittsburgh? Most likely, right?
Most likely, yeah, because
not guaranteed, but most likely.
Yeah.
Should he sign somewhere as a starting quarterback if free agency started today? Would you say that's a guy that teams would feel comfortable taking that shot on?
I mean, I'm sure teams wouldn't feel comfortable, but also teams wouldn't feel comfortable with Sam Darnold today either.
Exactly. But come March, Sam Darnold's it again. Sam Darnold's that guy. That's gone. Russ is that guy. It's gone. Daniel Jones is going to be a guy that teams take a shot on somewhere. The NFL's short-term memory is nuts. So I think that works in their favor. Now, is it going to happen? I think I'm on your side. I actually am fully on your side, where I think it's a toss-up. It's a coin flip. Is George Pickens going to stay or go? Who knows? But the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the mindset that he may most likely be gone, and they're going to look other ways. And I don't know how that impacts what we'll give up for him. I don't know how that impacts who they're going to get. I think it definitely boosts the all Steelers talk narrative of sign T. Higgins. But I look at it and say that there's a long time between now and April. And if the Steelers want to do it, they're gonna. And I just think this is an early indication. That's all this is. We can ramble on this all we want. We don't have an answer. We're not going to get an answer for months. But the fact that it's out there, it's got to mean something. And if you're on the side of get rid of all the toxicity, it's got to be a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, I think all we know now is the talks are going to happen. I mean, whether or not you believed it was, I think you have to know now that there are going to be trade conversations about George Pickens. But the problem is, and the Steelers might change their tune on what they're willing to accept in a trade for George Pickens, but you don't trade away a player of that talent, no matter what the issues are, no matter how big the issues are. You don't trade away a player of that talent off of your team without getting something very impressive in return. And I think it starts with a second. I have no idea if teams around the league are going to say that he has been good enough in the last 3 years to allow them to ignore the red flags that had them all pass on him in the NFL draft. That's my sticking point, and it's something that we're going to learn over the next 3 or 4 months. But it is going to be one that I think the Steelers are going to have to wrestle with during that entire time.